Once Buddha came to preach his disciples. Many people and disciples had gathered there to listen to him. He had a beautiful piece of cloth like handkerchief in his hand. Everyone was surprised as it was very unusual to see Buddha with anything in his hands. When Buddha was addressing everyone, he started tying knots in that piece of cloth. After tying 5 knots in the piece of cloth, he showed it to everyone and asked them, "Is this the same piece of cloth which I had brought earlier, or is there any difference?" One of the disciples said, "Lord, cloth is same, but its condition has changed." Buddha said, "You are right. Now if I wish, is it possible for me to bring condition of this cloth back to its original form?" Another disciple replied, "Yes, Lord, it is possible, but you will have to untie all the knots from that piece of cloth." Buddha asked, "How would you untie the knots? Will the knots be untied by pulling the piece of cloth?" Another disciple replied, "Lord, if we observe carefully and figure out how exactly the knots have been tied, then it will be easier to untie the knots. But if we don't know that and try pulling the cloth from both sides, then we might make the knots even tighter." Buddha said, "Exactly. Now you see, many times we argue and quarrel with our friends and family members. If we insist that only we are right, then the knots become stronger." Then, as Buddha untied the knots, he explained, "If we analyze the reason behind knots and try to remove root cause of knots without expecting anything from other person, then we can easily untie all the knots. If we can do that, our relationships will become smooth just like this piece of cloth. You just need to untie the knots. And when you will have smooth relationships with your friends and family members, your whole life will become joyful." If we see in our life, we'll find that many times we have quarrels with our family members and friends. And then, as a result of quarrels, we tie knots in our relationships. We tie a knot of hatred, we tie a knot of grudge, we tie a knot of jealousy, we tie a knot of dislike for someone, and then these knots starts causing uneasiness in our life. We want to improve our relations and we want to sort out our differences. But we start pulling things apart due to our ego that only we are right and other person is wrong. We need to let go of everything. Forgive others if they have done something wrong with you. Don't expect someone's apology. And if you think it's your fault, then don't hesitate to apologize. We need to avoid tying these knots in our relationships. Try not to have expectations from others. Be happy with what you have and make others happy too.